We are stuck in, oh, I'm not the body. And one of the biggest things that I would love to point out to us, like, yay, we are not the body. Why are we so happy about being not the body? We cannot feel ourselves, because the moment we feel ourselves, first of all, we recognize that it's full of pain underneath the numbness. And second of all, that we hate ourselves. And our self-hate, or our global collective self-hatred, I think, is directly mirrored in how we destroy this planet. We wouldn't do that if we would be egoistic in a wonderful term. If we would be arrogant in a way of truly believing in us, we would have this earth being paradise because it is, and because we would embody that we deserve a happy life. And by us destroying the environment, it comes exactly from self-hatred and the confusion. Self-hatred should be self-love or egoism, where I'm like, no, I won't call this egoism. I call it immaturity, stupidity, and collective trauma. I mean, there is no glamour in burning the earth. It's no glamour. Every idiot can die. And every idiot will die. What do we want to prove?
And I think we are driven. There's that element of self-hatred, and to me there are layers to that. One of those layers is a mistrust, a demeaning, a demonizing of what is female. Material, the word material comes from a Latin word that means mother. And the material world is there to exploit. And the material body is there to dominate and to control and to fix when it goes wrong. I really feel an intelligence in the body, and I feel that intelligence centered in the pelvic bowl. And it is like a complementary pole to the intelligence in the head. And these poles long for each other. They long to come into relationship, but our cultural fear of the female, which is millennia old, it's not a new thing. It goes back to the Neolithic Revolution. And what's happened is, well, maybe I'll trace that out just a little bit. In the Neolithic Revolution, we discovered agriculture and domesticated animals and built permanent settlements. So there's a transition from hunting gathering, in which you just notice the world and feel it and attune to it and are guided by it, to agriculture, where you move into a position of control. And the moment you take a seed for the first time and push it into the ground, everything changes. So suddenly, this bit of ground belongs to you. You have ownership of the earth, of this bit of earth, which is sort of insane. And then
and it owes you something. It has to give you something. Instead of, I'm giving you your existence all the time. Kind of, sorry for interrupting, but how ridiculous it is. Yeah.
There's that separation, and then the little plant growing up beside yours, it's now a weed and it has to be killed. And the little animal coming along is now vermin, and it has to be killed because it might eat your plant. And the tree growing beside your plant has to be cut down because it's putting your little plant in shade, and everything changes. And what happened with the Neolithic Revolution, in the late Paleolithic, the human experience was one that experienced the center of thinking in the belly. And you can see that in the art. You can see that in sort of Proto-Indo-European roots of language. There are some burial sites where there is a stone placed at the navel. And then you think, oh, right, we have a headstone. We mark the head, that's our center. They have a navel stone. They mark
Mm.
the belly center. And what happened?
Mm.
There were all these deep cultural changes where we turned away from the goddess who was immanent in all things. I mean, a blade of grass was a manifestation of the goddess, a tree was. And we turned our allegiance to the god, and we left the mother. Culture was gathered around the mother, of course it was. But then somehow we moved towards the father and considered the father to be the center of the family. And at the same time, we moved away from the earth, and our attention went to the sky instead. And all of those things happened as our center of awareness left the pelvic bowl, left the belly, and began to rise through the body. So there's a period. Homer, the language Homer used was old, and I think he was writing around 800 BC. There's a word he uses over and over, phrene, P-H-R-E-N in English. And phrene, I mean, it turns up in English phrenology, for example. I don't know if you know phrenology, but it's,
No.
you it's a somewhat discredited science because it would measure your head, take various measurements, and tell you what your personality was
Mm.
according. I mean, it's
Mhm.
absurd, but
Mhm.
phrene, the Greek word phrene meant mind, and it also meant diaphragm,
Hmm.
because they experienced their thinking, their mind in the diaphragm. And there's one translator of Homer, Richmond Lattimore, who preserves that sense. So once in a while, he'll have a character say, "The mind within my breast understands your words." And then from Homer, the center of our awareness rose up to the head. By Plato's day, we were in our heads. And there's a dialogue that Plato wrote called Timaeus, in which this very wise man was asked, "Tell me, how did the gods make us?" And Timaeus responded, "Well, first they fashioned this divine sphere based on the orbs of the heaven. And then they realized that it wouldn't be able to get around. So they grew it a vehicle, arms and legs and a torso. So there we are. I think that's maybe 350 BC. And Plato is talking about the body as a vehicle and the head as the divinest part of us.
Mm.
And his audience was rapt because they recognized the truth of what he said. So this is an old story. And for me, that turning away from the female shows up in the body as a dissociation from our being.
Mhm.
And when you dissociate from your being, you leave an emptiness there. And no amount of consumerism can fill it. And we are an addictive society, whether it's gambling or shopping or sex or whatever it might be. We are trying to fill this emptiness within. And
Mm.
it can't be done, not with any
Mm.
of those things.